This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski.
Featuring author, psychologist, and daily contributor, Shavaun Scott.
Is Asa Ellerup's Payday about to be interrupted? That Peacock Payday for the documentary that she is participating in with 50 Cent's G Unit Productions. She, of course, not being paid for the documentary itself, but being paid for the rights to use her image. That's how it worked out for the $1 million. Well, if some lawmakers have their way, that money may not be staying with Asa very long. The Son of Sam law does exist, but that speaks more to directly the criminals that are being accused of crimes or convicted of crimes. That would apply more to her husband, Rex, who's accused of being the Long Island serial killer. The expansion proposal of this law, this new bill in New York, proposes to expand it to also include defendants' relatives. Attorney John Ray, representing some of the victims' families, does support this move. But is it the right move? I think that is the question that we need to ask. Joining me to discuss, Shavaun Scott, psychotherapist and author. On the surface, I'm all about Asa Ellerup not getting $1 million payday. But at the end of the day, and this is a state law, so this would just really affect New York, it would also affect individuals like a Carrie Rawson or someone who is also a victim of their circumstance, of their supposed one-time loved ones. Her father being the BTK killer, she spends her life as a victim advocate now. If you're doing that and that's your life, you do need to make a living. You need to put food on the table and a roof over your head. This law would essentially stop someone like that from being able to do that in that sort of situation. At the same point, it would stop someone like Asa Ellerup from making $1 million on the back of a bunch of murdered women. Shavaun, what are your thoughts on this proposed bill?
Well, I'm with you. It has such a slimy feel. I think we would love to see Asa not walk away with $1 million on, as you say, the backs of the victims. But the problem with laws often, it works in specific cases, but not in other cases. And it would be nice if there were another way to interrupt what's going on here without something that's going to affect so many other people.
And so much about this is really intent. And you can't really necessarily legislate intent, I think, the way that they're wanting to. I mean, if years later we truly do find out that Asa had nothing to do with any of this and she was a victim, maybe she is. I could see, wanting to tell her story. And if she wants to make some money on it because that's kind of isolated into a corner of this is your identity now. Okay. But the timing of all of it is what's one of the creepiest things, that this is still all ongoing. We don't even know the answers to so many of these questions. The goal of the documentarians are probably to get her convicted as well. That would make for a great documentary.
Yeah.
But you can't really legislate intent in something like this.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's probably better that we don't amend a law just for this specific case.
It makes me wonder if something like this has ever been proposed in the past. I don't know the answer to that. Or if there would be some way to word this to really kind of to capture what's going on in a situation.
Yeah, just narrow in on this particular case or come up. I would think there's possibly a way to use nuance and finesse to come up with something that's a bit more narrow and less broad that would not impact someone like Carrie, who down the road, because her story was not told immediately. It wasn't part of the trial. It wasn't this sensationalized documentary process. And so there may be a way to have some finesse and do something that would be more targeted and fit better.
I think if the documentarians do get what they want, essentially a repeat of like Robert Durst and the Jinx incriminating themselves right there on film. And if there is some sort of charges or convictions ever brought against Asa, $1 million, I guess that could go a long way in the canteen in prison, if that's in fact where she ends up. If not, we'll just have to see where this all goes. It's another piece of this case that just gets weirder by the day.
Want to listen ad-free? Want advance access to all of our interviews before anyone else?
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
You get every episode commercial-free.
So you can binge on true crime
Until you can binge no more.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts now, or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast next.